and welcome to my presentation on adolescent substance use treatment in Clackamas County, Oregon. So the purpose of this assessment was to determine what SUD treatment is available in Clackamas County for adolescents. And then why is this so important? Well, Oregon ranks really high at a national level for use of illicit substances for youth. And then also the community is preparing for the opening of its first recovery high school in the next year. So it'll be really important to have collaboration amongst all sites in this area. So then data collection. All of the interview questions are here, but we'll see them on the slides as well. So the interview process was conducted over 2 weeks at 4 different sites. Here is each of the sites that were interviewed, and the questions are: what is the role at your facility? How long have you been here? What is your educational background? How did you become interested in working with this population? You provide a number of services such as X and Y. Are there additional services that this population needs? And I interviewed 2 outpatient facilities, Acadia Northwest and Western Psychological, and then Pam Pierce of the Oregon Recovery High School Initiative, and then Donnie Wright, who is in private practice for this population. So here's some literature review findings. Really the most important part is how high Oregon ranks nationally, as well as just that studies have found that the younger a person engages in treatment, the more likely they are to step away from criminal behaviors. So now on to results. So the first piece is availability of treatment. So what are challenges experienced by youth and adolescents in accessing treatment? So all the interview sites cited that there's just a lack of treatment options in Clackamas County. There's one residential treatment center in the state that takes Medicaid for adolescents, and there's no known detoxification centers for youth in the state. So then more about challenges. A big one that was cited was treatment resistance, as well as how familial dynamics or denial of addiction issues can really hinder treatment. And then what are the strengths of this population? Resiliency was cited as the number one strength, and then ability to be malleable, thriving in community, and being resourceful. So what are the primary co-occurring symptoms you find in this population? Anxiety and depression were, not surprisingly, the top symptoms and disorders. And then next, symptoms of trauma were very common, and 50% had, diagnosis of PTSD, and then eating disorders, ADD, and then self-harm behaviors such as cutting were very, very common. And then how does familial involvement impact treatment outcomes with this population? So familial involvement was just reported to be imperative by all parties, and that's for both unhealthy and healthy family systems, being able to have that client have some sort of support and kind of change the trajectory of what those relationships look like. And then voluntary treatment. All of the interview sites reported that it's normal for a youth to have outside pressures that prompt treatment, and that treatment resistance is really just common with this age range. So more about that. How does treatment resistance play a factor in a client's involvement? So again, all of the sites said treatment resistance is common, and that motivational interviewing can really be super beneficial in combating that, if you will. So again, MI was number one modality that was mentioned. And then a lot of CBT and DBT techniques were mentioned, as well as treatment of family systems theory, or using that model. So the big picture, how does this age group receiving treatment impact the community and society as a whole? So all interviewees identified that treating this population can help reduce stigma of addiction, and it can lead to positive outcomes such as an increase in high school graduates, a decrease in unemployment among young people, which are stated to have positive societal outcomes. And then recommendations. So I was able to interview a few sites, but there's a total of 3 companies and 4 locations in Clackamas County. However, it's recommended that these agencies are able to expand level of cares, such as residential detoxification. Also, family systems work was found to be really important, but it's not universally offered. So there's definitely some room for growth there. And then anxiety and depression are found to afflict many youth, but there's not a huge amount of dual diagnosis treatment, so expanding those services. And then clinicians reported that familial trauma was very common, so it's important for educators, social workers, community members to really understand those pieces and how that affects young people, what that looks like. And then MI and the use of behavioral therapies and such as CBT were found to be super helpful, but not universal. So again, increased training on that subject matter. So then sharing findings, I have been provided with email information for each site, and we'll be sending them out to them in the next day or so. And then reflection. So effectiveness. This project was successful due to the willingness of the interview sites to participate, having standardized questions, and applying feedback from my student teacher. Additionally, spacing out interviews and other assignment requirements over a period of time helped it to be a more streamlined process. And then struggles. One thing that I found to be a struggle was the ability to work with Clackamas County Behavioral Health. It might be because of maybe specific confidentiality rules or hoops to jump through within the county, but I think that being able to involve or include them in this process would have provided a more comprehensive set of data. So maybe having more time to network with them or going there in person would have caused that to happen. And then my experience really is that I've worked mainly in micro social work, so this helped me to get a better feel of macro, and then also being able to cooperate with a variety of community agencies. So there's more information about that here, but I'll cut off for sake of time, and here's some references. Thanks.